Hello Year 11, it's Mr. Sumner here, and I'm recording a video to help you with the walk and talking mock work that we've been doing in lessons this week. And this video is aimed at anyone who's missed any of those lessons for whatever reasons, or anyone who just wants to refresh themselves and review with the process. Now, to do this, what you need to have is a black pen. The resources are, you've got 3 model answers that have been given out in class or emailed to you or sent by Go for Schools. And then lastly, the 2 papers themselves. And you have a question paper and you have an exam insert. And what we've tried to do here is replicate the exam as closely as possible. So as you can see, the exam timing, 1 hour 45 minutes, that's the same as in the exam. The marks are all the same, the structure is the same. All this stuff is what the rubric of the exam looks like. And you're advised to spend about 15 minutes reading through the whole thing. And when you read through, I'd really recommend that you read through all the questions first, and therefore you start to get an idea of, say, which specific lines you need to pay attention to. And when you also read through the 2 extracts that you'll have, and even the titles of the extract, and this information here can give you some useful things. So for example, here in source A you get this information about it's an article, and in source B that it's a letter. There's always a shared theme, which in this case is about nursing, and what you want to do as you work through it is make some highlights and some annotations. Now this will be your normal sort of best practice in the exam itself. What I want you to think about today is working under very tight time conditions, because the better practice you get at that, the more automatic you will be at answering things in the exam in a really smooth and efficient way. So what we're going to do today is actually start really with question 2. Now, what question 1 always actually is this series of true and false statements that you need to identify around a section of the text. In this case, I'm not going to go through this with you, but if you want to email me what you think are the correct answers or show me in class, that's absolutely fine. But for the purpose of today's exercise, we're not really thinking about this kind of initial, and it's really the exam board giving you a kind of do now activity to get started. We're going to get straight into question 2. And question 2 is one of 2 questions in this paper that asks you to compare both sources. But as you can see, it wants you to compare them about a specific thing. In this case, the conditions faced by the nurses. So this is what you need to be thinking about. And the best way to start is to make a plan where you're outlining the key points from both texts that you could write about. A bullet point list would be fine, or even a numbered sequence that you're doing from important things in the insert. So for example, when you're thinking about nurses' conditions, you might want to look down at the text and think, okay, this is clearly a condition in terms of what they do. Say they find themselves first in line, and you could put, say, a number 1 on top of that or by that to indicate that's what you want to work with. And over here you might do the same thing, and you think, okay, here we are dealing with practical things over here, sort of number 1. So, give yourself the chance to make this planning. Now what I want you to do is to pause the video and then take 4 minutes, be very exact with your timings, to read over both sources, make some further underlinings or highlighting, and thinking about this. Again, do not go over the time limit, because you're really focused today on working about practice. So I'm just going to stop talking, and when I stop talking, take 4 minutes to read and review. Okay, so coming back to then what we're doing is what you need to be doing here in this question, where you're comparing, thinking about these things in detail, is you want to make sure you make clear points about both texts, you support your points with quotations, and you make inferences to show your understanding. Okay, perceptive inference is crucial here. You could say structure your answer by beginning each paragraph with a statement about a similarity or difference. Now, what I want you to do now is look at the model paragraph we've given you. So just take 2 minutes to have a look at this, and you can see here source A is referenced, then source B, source B again, source A. So what you've got is this really important continual balancing between the 2 sources. It's just Just take 2 minutes to read over that. Okay, good. And now what I want you to do is just to write a paragraph on this question, thinking about using the model paragraph as a guideline, using the notes you've already made as a guideline, and writing a model paragraph yourself, maybe just aiming to get down to this point of the page, and think about how you might want to start it. You might want to try and make an immediate comparison, so both. So from time to time, my visualizer switches over. Apologies for that. So both source and A and B. But what you want to avoid is don't mention anything to do with, say, that source A is from the 21st century, source B is from the 19th century, because one, the examiner knows that, and two, that's nothing to do with the conditions the nurses are facing. So give yourself 3 minutes to have a go at that, and do that now. Okay, so let's move on now to question 3. Now question 3 will always be about language, and it will ask you to write about one of the sources, usually the 19th century source, and what you'll be asked to do there is to be able to write about the language ideas in that. So what we need to be thinking about here is it's very similar to language paper 1 question 2, so again you're building up these skills, what we call AO2 skills. However, whereas in question 2 in language paper 1 you only have a very small chunk of language, here you've got something much more substantial. And again, if you've read through the questions first, you're already prepared for this, because you've worked out, right, what is source B, lines 1 to 18, you've broken it down and you've already demarcated that, it ends here, doesn't it? And therefore you're able to focus on this particular area. Now again, you want to write clearly about the paragraphing and thinking about that. And now what I want you to do is to take 5 minutes to reread over this source, again highlighting and annotating quotes, thinking about how the writer has used language to describe the experience as a nurse. Again, don't go over the time limit, please, and take that 5 minutes now. Okay, so thinking about the sort of things you should include in your paragraph, you can see I've made some notes on it. I made a distinction between how language is used to describe the first part, the physical experiences of being a nurse, the stuff about organisational things, washing the patients and putting to bed, and on the other side the sort of psychological language of using a nurse. The language here is more emotive and things like that. Now, here's a language feature I picked out earlier. You gentlemen of England, it's direct address, but actually I'm not going to use that because the question is all about Florence Nightingale's experiences as a nurse. It's not about just all the language features she uses anyway. So what we want you to do here is include features used by the writer, support points with quotations but use short embedded ones. Maybe sort of 5 words max would be useful. Try and discuss the effect of the language, so you don't just want to feature spot and say this is a simile. Why has the writer used a simile? Even why has the writer used a simile as opposed to a metaphor in this situation? Keep your comments about the effect on the reader. What does it make them think, feel and imagine? And again, you want to avoid phrases like to make the reader read on or to create an effect. You're not really doing anything there. You need to explain the specific effect of what's going on. Sentence forms works okay here. So thinking about declarative, imperative, interrogative and exclamatory. But again, keep on linking back to the effect. Keep on thinking about what the language choices are made. So what I want you to do now is have a look at the model answer for question 3, which is just here. And again, 2 minutes to read this through. Now again, just this clarity, writer uses language to express how life-changing being a nurse is. So right away we're making a valid point, right from the start. And as you can see, here's probably our longest quotation. We've got lots of embedded quotations, short quotations, indicating sentence structures, pointing at word classes. So all these kind of things give you a balance of what you should be doing. Okay, so take 2 minutes to read that over now, please. So now what I want you to do is to take 4 minutes, and again to have a go at writing your own model paragraph. Now, with this one, it's really important to remember this is a 12-mark question. Now, what lots of students do is they end up writing more for question 2 than they do for question 3 or 4. But question 3 is worth 12 marks. So actually in the exam, you want to be going over the page, don't you? But say for this exercise, this 4-minute paragraph, again, maybe good to aim to get down to here. That would be a good start point. Okay, have a go at that now, please. And lastly, what I'm going to ask you to look at is question 4. And I've just put a key word about question 4 at the top of my answer page, and that's synoptic. So question 4 asks you to really work on all the skills of the paper. And that's why you need to look at the whole of source A and the whole of source B. And here you're thinking about ideas and viewpoints, perspectives, attitudes. How do writers do this? How do they convey the meaning of what they want you to work on and what you want to think about? So you have to compare, and the assessment objective for this in comparison is AO3. So it's worth 16 marks. And again, this is where, I think the national average for this mark question in 2019 was 8 or 9 out of 16. And again, it's worth 16 marks. It's the biggest question in section A. So again, they give you some space for this. You want to be writing a substantial answer for this. So what you need to do now is take another 4 minutes to look over both sources and underline or label any methods you think support your original statements. It's methods that writers use to create effects. So parts of speech, verbs and adjectives, structural features, listing, repetition, language devices. Think about that. Okay, have a go. Before you start writing, what I want you to think about is the following things that you could do. You could make statements about how both the writers view the topic. So the topic here is nursing. You support quotations, again embedded and concise, so again short 5-6 word quotations. Inferences from the quotations, but then AO2, stuff that shows your understanding of the language devices. You could reference line numbers to be specific, and then explain the effect of each method on the reader. And then use words and phrases to compare the views on the two texts. Okay? And then you can link the two things between each other. Now once again, there's a model paragraph for you to have a look at. And again, straight away you can see with a source question where we need to talk about both sources, we want a good smattering of information about both sources. And you can see here the writer is referring really clearly to both things. There's quotations. Again, right from the second line, so get these embedded quotations in right from the start. Think about things like tone and register, an emotional response, word classes, words like suggest is really good. Think about the order of the text, the final point, for example. So all these kind of things give you a sense of sequence. Okay. Now, having looked at that, look over your model answer for a couple of minutes, and then just take 5 minutes to have a go at writing something here. And again, in this 5 minutes, your practice and experience, maybe aim to get down to the bottom of the page for this question, because it's really important to practice writing this substantially. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. The aim of this video is to really support the work we've been doing in the class and give you some further guidance how to do this. I've recorded this video and presented it in such a way that, take the time to stop and pause for the timing bits and then come back to it. Take the time to read over things in a really thorough way, have a go at the answers. I'm sure your English teachers will be willing and able to give you some feedback on the work you've done and the work you've created around this. Again, this is all about practicing these routines that you need to be successful in these exams. Okay, please feel free to email me with any questions or anything that's not been clear from this video. Take care and good luck, and see you all soon. Alright, thanks very much. Bye.